everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk a bit about arrays. I'm very excited. These are data structures. So we already spoke a little bit about data structures. We spoke about the last in first out stack, where we had the plates and you push on a method call on the method call stack, and then you pop it off when it has a return address, and it returns the control back to, or it returns the value back to the other method, or wherever it was called, to the caller, where it was called from. And arrays are groups of values, groups of variables, and these are called elements. Each part of the array is called an element or a component. So within programming, it's important to note that there are so many different programming languages out there that a lot of people refer to methods as functions, depending on the programming language, or for arrays it's elements or components. And each of these elements have to contain the same type. So if you initialize an array as an integer, they all have to contain integers. If you initialize it as a char, they all have to be char type. And arrays are objects, so they are considered a reference type. Typically, think of an array as actually a reference to an array object in memory. And the elements can be primitive or reference types. So you refer to a particular element and a name of the reference to the array and the position number. So we're going to have a little look at an example in a minute, and you can see what I mean. And the position number is called the element's index or subscript. Again, two words for the same thing. So elements or components are within the array, and then index or subscript for referring to the position number of each of these elements. So an array access expression then would be like the name of the array and then two square brackets. And then the first element is going to be two square brackets with 0, and that's your 0 element. So it's a concept called zero-based counting. So the first element in the array is actually 0 index, and then the index has to be non-negative. So each array object then knows its own length. So, and it stores its length instance variable. So if we were to say, and it's the same with every type of reference type or primitive type that we create a new object. So if we say we want to create a new variable or a new object from account, and then you say account and then lowercase account is equal to new, capital letter account, open bracket, round bracket, close round bracket, semicolon. That's creating a new object called account with the lowercase a in that class. For an array, you do a similar thing where you use the new keyword to create a new object, because arrays are also objects and they are also part of a data structure, they're all related data, sorry, and they're part of data structures. So if you think of an array, it's an array of data, so it's stacking them. So if you have a stack of cards, the pack of cards is called a pack of cards, and then every element within that is part of the array, and then you iterate through that. So it's just being able to stack data on top of each other, basically. In the simplest form, if you think of it that way. It's not entirely accurate, but if you think of it that way, it might be easier to understand it. And it's important to know as well the type and the number of elements, and that's in the array creation expression. So there's the array access expression and the array creation expression. And then we have the 0 element as the index of the first element of the array. So I'm going to pause the video now, and then I'm going to write out an example and then show you what it means. Okay. So I've got an example here done out as init array class, and it's just in the main method. Now as we know from the previous video, if we want to create anything within a method, then obviously it's only available within the method, it's not available within that class. So if I was to create another method below it, then this array is not available within the other method. Okay? Are we good? Are we clear so far? So everything within a method is only accessible within that method. So now we have our int. It's an int type. Here we have our open and closed square brackets to show that it's an array. I've called it array. I can call it something else as well. I can call it new r. And then for every place that I had array, I have to make sure that it's called that as well. Now, so let's say new array is equal to new int, and then open bracket, close bracket, square brackets, 10, and then I output here, system out printf, and I just output the index and the value. And we have 8 here, which we know already from the previous video as well. So we have, we can put in a different number here, let's say 10 or another one. We're going to go with 8 for the moment. And you can see here in the console the difference. See, it just pushes it over by 2 extra. So if I have it back to 8 now, it will go back to where it was. Nice format. And then obviously this is also something to note. I have put in the names here of the strings that I want to show, index and value, but you can define them as well, and you can define them and assign them up here and then just use them down here if you wanted to. So let's say if I wanted to do string whichever index, and then index is equal to index, and then you can just call it index and value here if you wanted to. Because they're just headings, there's no need to, and they're not being reused again. It's just within this method, it's just for an example. But it's something to note because there are different ways to do so many different things within programming that it's important to hold on to some of the other ways to do it, so that when you get to do programming, there's a robust way of figuring out the best way to do it. And we'll make things more efficient in this as we're going along as well. So we have programs that we've done that are a little bit inefficient that we're going to make a lot better in later videos as well. So here we have our output for each array. So this is our for loop. So all it is iterating through each of the elements. There's another different type of for loop as well that does it a little bit more efficiently, but for now we're just going to learn this one. Stick to the traditional. Int counter is equal to 0. As we know from before, I could easily define int counter here and then initialize it here to 0. So I can have int counter here if I wanted to, and then just remove the int here, and it's initialized down here. That's also another way to do it, but for ease of readability, for ease of use and readability, it's down here. Counter is less than new array dot length. Now we already said every array already knows its own length. Very cool. So you can actually look up online in the Oracle website for Java. If you look up the array, and because it's an object, you can look up everything related to it. So array dot whatever the name of the array dot length is always going to tell you the length of the object. So in this case, it's going to go through, the counter is going to stop at the end of the array basically, and then it's going to output our counter, so how many times it goes through, which is also the length of the array, and then it's going to show here the index and then the value. So if I have here, this is our 0th element, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So here's what's really important. There's actually 10 there. So I have initialized it to 10, but it starts at 0 for the index. Really important to get this now. This is one of the most important things when you're learning arrays. That it's zero-based counting, and there's a zeroth element, and it goes from 0, 1, 2, So if you say I want a new int array 10, then it starts from 0, so the index ends at 9, not at 10, so it's one less. Okay. So I think we're going to leave it there for today. As long as with arrays, we need to discuss the declaration, the creation, and the initialization. There's the access, the array access, as well as the array declaration, and then the array length. And how you define it here is similar to how you define every other type. So if I was to say int counter, that's our normal variable. To make it an array one, then it just has to have these 2 square brackets in it to show what size it is. This is it here. You always have to have a size in it as well. Okay, great. So if you have any questions, send them to learncomputerswithali@gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer them. And yep, thanks for watching.